So now they're going to make their way to my position and hunt me down and kill me. Here they all come. Alright, let's meet them. Spawn enemies around the player that will hunt the player. Today I'm going to share with you a function that you could use in your scenarios that will spawn enemy around the player, whether you set it for a radio trigger or an area trigger or another means. For this to work, we're going to place down a trigger without a size. We're going to place it right in front of the player, and we're going to create a area trigger that the player is going to walk into. Basically, I'm going to edit this. I'm going to make a rectangle, and while we're in here, we're going to set the activation of this to blue for present, and I'm going to give you guys a code, but not yet, so we're just going to hit OK for now. Expand the trigger a little bit so that when we walk forward we don't miss it, and that's about it. Alright, I started up a notepad document, and I'm going to give you guys a code. Make sure that the cursor is blinking, and here is the code. Left square bracket, player, comma, space, player, comma, space, opfor, comma, space, left square bracket, quote, end quote, comma, quote, end quote, right square bracket, comma, space, 5, comma, space, 10, right square bracket, space, spawn, space, bis underscore fnc underscore spawn enemy with a capital E and then semicolon. Press enter to go one line down, and we're going to add a hint. So type in hint space quote, the enemy has been spawned, exclamation point, end quote, and then semicolon. Alright, let's go over this code real quick. So the first part where it says player is actually the player as the target. The second one is the player where the enemy AI will put their waypoints on the player. I can't really explain these two functions in particular. I even asked my friend Gear about this, and we kind of went into it trying to understand why BIS did the function like this, but this is just an example. And no, you can't change the target. It's going to be the player regardless. This here is the side of the enemy that is going to spawn. Inside these brackets are going to be class names of the enemy units that you define. They're not going to be vehicles, they're going to be soldiers. This is the number, which can be any number. It doesn't have to be 5. The amount of enemy that are going to spawn at one time in one wave. There's going to be a constant amount of waves that will spawn around the player, and that'll start at 5. When you kill 5, then more will spawn in. This is the amount of time before another wave will spawn in. You could have this longer or shorter, and this is the function, the spawn enemy function, that will basically spawn these enemies. And the hint is not required. The hint is just something I decided to add because when you enter a trigger and you don't know if you triggered the trigger or if code isn't correct, then this gives you feedback that something did indeed happen. Alright, what we need to do is acquire class names from units that we define. So we're going to go to groups. So choose F2, and then we're going to choose opfor because that's what we defined in the code. We're going to close the CSAT and choose FIA, infantry, and an assault squad. We're going to place down a squad right here. I'm going to go to the map so you can see them better. Now just keep in mind that these units could be anything you want. They could be individual units, it could be a squad, it doesn't matter. All you're doing is acquiring class names to add to the code. So the units could be from any faction, it doesn't matter, as long as you define what side that faction is in the code. Now that we have the squad that we want to use, they're not going to spawn as a squad, they're going to spawn as individual units. I chose this squad for the variety of different types of units to fight against. What you need to do is just make sure that they're all highlighted like you see here. Right click one of them and then go down to where it says log, and then go down to where it says log classes to clipboard. Click on that. When the menu disappears, then you're good to go. Hit delete on your keyboard to delete the squad that you had. And what we need to do next is go back to the code and add the class names. All right, back at our code, what you're going to do now is you're going to go in between the brackets, highlight everything here, and you're going to press Control V, which will paste all the class names from the units that you have logged. So before we add this code to trigger, we actually have to update aspects of this code. What you need to do is you need to put quotes before and after each one of these class names. And then what you need to do after the class names, except for the last one here, is you need to put a comma that separates each class name and no comma at the last one. So we can leave the code like this. We're going to highlight it all. Press Control C, and we're going to go back in game and put this into the trigger. All right, back in the mission, let's edit the trigger. And in the on activation box, we're going to make sure your cursor is blinking, and then press Control V. That'll paste the code that we copied from the notepad document, and just hit OK, and that's it. Next, just save your mission, and let's test it out. Alright, so the trigger is in front of us. We're just going to walk through it, and as you can see, the enemy has been spawned. So let's get somewhere safe, and I'm just going to go in here for now and lay down. We're going to hit escape and go to spectator and see how this works. Basically, you've got one guy that spawned in, two guys that spawned in, and just remember in the code there's going to be a maximum of 5 enemies that will spawn as we defined. Once it reaches 5, that's going to be it. And it takes them 10 seconds as we set for each one of them to spawn in. So here we have all 5 enemies, and they're not, and no more will be spawning in. So if you wanted to adjust this, let's go back to the trigger and go to the bottom. Now remember, this is 5 enemies. If we set this for 10 enemies and reduce the time to say 1 second, then 10 enemies are going to spawn. 1 enemy is going to spawn at 1 second a piece. So we'll try that, save it, and we'll test it out. Alright, same thing, we'll just walk to the trigger. Enemy has been spawned. Go in here for now. And we'll hit escape and go to spectator. You can see how fast the enemy is spawning in. So far we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's all of them. That's all the enemy that are going to spawn, because that's what we defined. So now they're going to make their way to my position and hunt me down and kill me. Here they all come. Alright, let's meet them. Got me already. Alright, we go to spectator real quick. You could see that more enemy spawns in, even though the ones that I killed have reduced, so it always maintains the number that you have set. I got someone. Yeah, I got him. I would recommend using a cleanup script or a cleanup code for this because the bodies are not going to delete. So you get hundreds of bodies here, and it's going to get possibly laggy depending on what you're running for a computer. But this is something you could add to your mission to add like an ambient enemy or add to the type of enemy that you want spawned. Or if you just want to create a mission and just have, you know, just kill some enemies, running around, killing some enemies. Alright, let's go back to the code and let's do something crazy. So let's say we had 50 enemies that spawned. Alright, this is going to be my last test. And there it is. So we're going to see where these guys spawn at. I'm going to go to spectator. And here they come in. Remember, there's going to be 50, so there's going to be a whole mess of them down this list. And I got them spawning in at 1 second a piece. Look at that. These guys are all over. This is gonna be crazy. They're still spawning in. Alright, we better decide our fate here. I got someone on that. Alright guys, I want to conclude it there. You get the idea. Just remember that you could define however many units that you want, different types of units. Alright guys, I hope you find this useful, and for more codes and scripts, take a look at this playlist.